नमस्कार व्यूवर्स। कुछ वीक पहले we celebrated Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Jayanti, and all of us tried to get more and more details than what we learned from our history books. And thanks to the governing party and many more organizations who are telling us the courageous activities and efforts Netaji put in to get the freedom to our motherland. But we have very limited knowledge, and unfortunately, not many people are aware about it. So today, I have invited a person who has done a in-depth study about history and eventually about Netaji's contribution in the history chapter. So she is going to tell us more about it, and we will try to understand Netaji, his life, and of course his contribution in the freedom fight. So let me formally, first of all, welcome Dr. Nirja Gupta. Suswagatamma. Now, Dr. Nirja Gupta is currently working as a Vice Chancellor of Sanchi University of Buddhist and Indic Studies, Madhya Pradesh, and Bharat Show Sansthan, she is part of it, and also Academic International Chair for the Geo Studies. Madam is actively involved into talking about Sanatana Dharma, our culture and our traditions, and as in general, what is meant by Bharatiya and what are our responsibilities. So today's topic, as I said, is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So before we get onto the topic, ma'am, the intention of this program is also to let people know about the individual who have taken something different and dedicated their life for that work. So I would like to know about your beginning in the study of history and also in so much of involvement into this topic.
First of all, thank you so much for making me part of your journey to reach out India in different manners. And I congratulate you and entire team for taking up this as a pursuit. As far as my journey continues, I belong to two parts. One is the normal professional working woman who in their profession try to seek out certain truths.
Yes.
But I'm also a great traveler and my work has taken me to different places. So what we studied in the books was very much different from the places I visited. And these monuments, these buildings, these societies, these archives, these diaries, they tell a different tale. It doesn't match with the curriculum or the syllabus or the narratives that has been made popular.
Mm-hmm.
So the conflict started from there. Be it the scriptures or the scientific truth about India or the historic journey of India or even the span of my country. I cannot limit it to the geographical boundaries of India as we see it today, because the span is magnanimous. So, because of this, these travels and these questions, I think I started searching back.
Mm-hmm.
So, most of the journey has been like a loner, depending upon the places which spoke the truth well over than the books.
So mostly in academics, am I right? And we always look up to our teachers to know everything, whether it is life science, whether it is science, whether it is history or something, any other topic for that matter. But of late, you can see this is a topic, or this is a kind of a concern to everyone, that the academic knowledge is not sufficient to become an individual that we want to be a citizen of the nation, or a responsible citizen of the nation. So what is your opinion on how the teaching techniques deteriorated, or the grasping techniques need more, I would say, more efforts?
Okay, I would like to put no blames on teachers, because teachers are given the task. So the strategists are somewhere else.
I see.
Had they been the teachers, it wouldn't have gone this deterioration. Here, the strategist is different from being a teacher. And those who plan what is to be taught, if they are not teachers, then they will not connect with the generations. So today the teacher has been reduced to just like a postman. Like you give a bundle something and the bundle has to be delivered. So the teachers are delivering the bundle, whether it's a school or college or university or research organizations. And in due course, the expectation from the society has increased. So this burden of expectation has reached to a certain point where everything is blamed upon the education. If a sanskar is missing, then education is wrong. If samaj is missing, then education is wrong. If rashtra is missing, then education is wrong. Well, if you look at the teachers, they're doing their duties perfectly because they have been asked to deliver a certain content and they're delivering it. So there was a gap between the samaj and the strategists. The strategists have failed to come up to the changing demands of the society. If that part was looked into well, then I'm sure this deterioration in teaching wouldn't have been possible at all. So now, when I look at the new education policy and different things, till now, what happens if you enter into the gate of your school or college or university, that gate became a divider. True. It cuts you off from the society. Yes. So what we study inside the gate has nothing to do what is there outside the society. And myself being a lady, and you are also an educated lady, you might have also come across a particular phrase like "padhi likhi ladki," which is not a praise. No. It is sort of a sarcasm. That okay, you are an educated girl, so that means you have nothing to do with the samaj and parivar and sanskar. So up to this level, the education had reached. That if someone is being educated, being a girl, then it means she's of no good, like the education is only to earn money. So, our shastras say, shiksha arth kari, yash kari cha sukh kari. So, arth kari is okay. If you earn out of shiksha, it's fine. But what type of earning? Yash and sukh should also come from it. Now, these two are the spiritual quotient. Yes. These two are not the they are not the physical attributes of shiksha. So now, if you remove the spiritual quotient from the education, then definitely a deterioration will be seen, because man is a component which is holistic. And if you are not creating a holistic man out of the education, then the deterioration has to be. Yes. So the most important thing is, and many teachers do that, beyond the syllabus, beyond the curriculum, they try to add this spiritual quotient in the students. Somewhere even the institutions are doing it of their own. But by and large, we had become the machines. And normally, when someone asks me to comment upon our education system, I say you count only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it ends. Now, 1 degree, 2 children, 3-bedroom house, 4-wheeler car, and 5-digit salary. If you have it, you are a successful person. Yeah. But then where is the peace? Yes. Where is the harmony? Yes. Where is the respect? Yes. If we remove these quotients, then we can't have the enlightened people or enlightened society. Absolutely. Therefore, there was a general deterioration in the respect. Respect for parampara, respect for tradition, respect for ancient knowledge systems, respect for the other people as a whole. Yes. So, it's I won't blame it only to the education, but yes, education is part of it, of forming of a man. Absolutely. And I think the strategists, either they have to connect directly or the teachers should become the strategists. And I think, as I always observed through this particular Diva journey, that intellectuals play a major role in defining the narrative and also the direction of a big strata section of people. And they have to be responsible. They have to be sensitive, no doubt about it,
today we are celebrating Vasant Panchami, and it is a Saraswati Puja. So hopefully, the shloka goes, Ya kunde tushar hara dhavala, Ya shubhra vastavruta, Ya veena varadanda manditakara, Ya shweta padmasana. So in our school, we used to chant this shloka every day, I remember. And that's how our prayer would start. So hopefully all those days come back, and all those values, all those beautiful days come back, and we are once again see the enriched society around. Coming back to our original topic, uh, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose had been so-called the first prime minister of India is everybody's dream, or at least majority of us think that he was a very potential candidate, a capable leader. The very reason was his ideology and his courage was entirely based on spirituality. So I first want to know, how did Swami Vivekananda influence the ideology of Netaji?
Swamiji was never a political saint.
No.
He was, I would say, a social engineer.
Yes.
And his all his speeches, his all messages were there to bring reform in the society.
Yes.
And for that, he made Vedas the base of it, because Vedas is our identity.
Absolutely.
Out of that, when Swamiji says two strong words, arise and awake, it should shake a person.
True.
Even now, when I'm uttering these, it's shaking me also.
Yes, yes.
If the audience is sitting there and someone says awake, what does it mean? What awakening is he talking about? Of course, they are awakened.
Yes.
So the morning has already been through.
Yes.
But what the call? Which type of waking up he's talking? And before waking up, he says, arise.
Arise.
Uttishth Jagrit.
Yes.
Now, this, I think, must impact on any enlightened soul who has energy to do anything for mother country. And Subhash Chandra Bose, though he was groomed into that British education system,
Yes.
he became ICS and he had that potential. So basically, he could be groomed into that culture as well. But the ingrained culture was Bharatiyata, the mother nation.
Mother nation, yeah.
Mata.
Yes.
Now, Swami Vivekananda was the energy which traveled very well into Subhash Chandra Bose. And it actually, what I would say, oriented his spirit, soul. And soul, it creates passion.
Yes.
Unless and until you have passion, you can't act.
Yes.
So what I feel that the connect is very, very deep. Swami Vivekananda and Subhash Chandra Bose, it never made him deviate from his ideology. And that is why you cannot fix Subhash Chandra Bose's ideology. It's very convenient to call people left and right and communist and nationalist and humanist, but Subhash Chandra Bose doesn't fit in any category. He surpasses the boundary. The moment you start binding him into one narrow definition, the obliques are already there.
Correct.
So you cannot bind him into anything. And that is how I think that Swamiji gave that direction or that binding to his soul, that what is primary and what is the action. And that connect, I think, is very great.
Yes.
That impact is very great.
Definitely. And as Swamiji has said that, according to his complete works,
Subhash.
Yes. So he has said that the society was in a tamasic state, and I wanted to bring the rajasic state into them. So arise and awake, get ready to do the action, some sort of an action. And that's exactly we see in Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Madam, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, he was a really highly qualified man, as you said, ICS, coming from a very wealthy background, because they were really prosperous family background. And just now you mentioned that his intellectual power and his potential was so heavy and so high. Um, the leader of that era, why couldn't they take it, and why couldn't they leverage his ideology and work accordingly? Why was he completely sidelined?
See, he tried his best to come in the mainstream.
Yes.
He compromised a lot.
Yes.
He actually gave full respects. So much so, though, even he was sidelined, the other side also could not stop giving him respects. Up to that level, he earned respects.
True.
And that can happen if only a person is very upright, very sure on the ideology, and doesn't change his mind.
True.
What I have found in his entire journey was that he had a very clear vision.
Yes.
And clear understanding.
Yes.
He could see the global placements.
True.
He could see the world affairs in such a manner that he could analyze and he could make up his mind according to the situation. And even in the global politics, we found that he was so right.
Yes.
Now, today, whatever he anticipated has actually come up. Exactly true. Yes. So we cannot suspect his understanding of the global affairs. While at that time, the local leaders were more engaged in creating a popular faith in them, creating their base. So there was a tag, the war of this pull and push. Now, this war basically was trying to place the popular face, while Subhash was not involved in creating himself as a popular face. He was more worried for India's freedom. And his all actions, his all sayings, his all determination, his suggestions, they were not based on the popular notion or popular sayings or who will share the stage, who will hold the mic and who will be the public face and all. He was very clear what should be done, how it should be done. And secondly, maybe because he was also trained well in the British education, he was never in awe of Britishers.
True.
He never came under their mental obligations, or as if he's sitting against a British officer, then he has to hide his face that, oh, yesterday I criticized you. So he had no shame in challenging the British regime. I think because of this straightforwardness and his stubbornness, I would say confidence in his own thinking.
The candid.
Yes, many could not accept him as he was, and there was too much of overthinking on other side. While he had already passed through that stage of overthinking. So the other side, when they started, judging him, he was beyond those stages, like beyond the judgment. He was what he showed, and he would not change his mind by the evening or within a week. He whatever he understood, it remained as it is throughout his own understanding till we know he was alive. So because of this, the national political scene was daily it was changing. Sometimes because of war, sometimes because of Italy, sometimes because of the positioning of Japan, Russia, and Germany, sometimes because of the internal episodes, what were happening and all. So they were changing daily basis. Plus, Hindu-Muslim narrative had also started in India, which was never over there. So the Congress, this leadership, they were in dilemma. And they did not want to blame themselves for the dilemma. So that is why they sidelined Subhash. That, see, we are the, what we could say, we are the liberals, or we are not the hardliners, or we are not the people who would say anything for violence. While he was, when he was in Congress, he never talked about, and even after that, he never talked about violence. Violence was not his way of the things. He was basically termed wrongly for that reason.
Yes. Also, I personally, or even it's a feeling of many. They feel that he had incomparable courage. He had a super potential, and as you say he knew what to do and deal with the foreign strategies and the policies and how to handle Britishers. However, even after the freedom, obviously, why we did not see him somewhere in the close circle of Nehru and Gandhi?
See, two things. One is he was the contemporary rival of Nehru. So till Nehru was there, the rival remains a rival.
But they, in fact, Nehru's ideology and this is Subhash ideology was quite matching, though.
Quite matching, but as an individual, he was a step ahead than Nehru.
Yes, true.
So, and he was creating certain things which ultimately would be accepted by the society. So, somewhere else, the Gandhi's preference was for Nehru was also being shaken. And we cannot forget that Gandhi was the kingmaker.
Yes.
So, if you are not popular with his opinion, then definitely the things would be somewhere set up in certain checkmate position that someone has to leave the show. And Subhash had to leave the show.
Leave the show, yeah.
And then the major historians came from Westworld. And these historians, they could not idolize someone who was challenging the British regime on their own face.
Yes.
So that status quo was maintained after independence, while there was a chance to actually overturn all these narratives. But that those narratives were never overturned. Because if you overturn and start doing that, then you have to go back. And if you have to go back, then certain truths might be revealed. And those truths would be uncomfortable.
Yeah, damaging to the...
So it was very comfortable that on the public forum, you keep on taking his name. As Nehru kept on taking Gandhi and Bose, public opinion was that. But then he never let him come out as a leader, as a person who contributed somewhere very strongly or positively towards this journey. It was very comfortable for Nehru to maintain this status quo.
Did we get freedom due to ahimsa, the calm approach, or we got it because the revolutionary actions or approach by a certain section of society, or because of the Azad Hind Sena?
Okay, if I know I would be criticized for my reply. Where was ahimsa? I have not seen ahimsa during whole of the freedom of struggle. Either there were riots or there were, very, very brutal attack on Indians, or there were lathi charges, or there were, on Gandhi's insistence, Indian soldiers going to take part in World War. If you are opposed to any sort of violence, how can you support Indian soldiers? India was never a part of World War. How can you accept actually for the soldiers to be sent to the World War? And I have visited those two villages in France myself. I can tell you, in First World War, there is a village where in one night, 4,400 Indian soldiers were martyred.
I see.
Till date, they are not given these title of martyrs. They are just British Army soldiers.
Army soldiers, yeah.
And the Second World War, this particular memoir has 22,000 Indian soldiers being martyred in one single night. And till date, they are not being given the position of being martyred. Isn't not Hinsa in Gandhi's words? What is Hinsa? And where was ahimsa? I don't find it. Just maybe Gandhi propagated ahimsa. With his words, we hear ahimsa.
Yes.
But where was ahimsa? I don't know. The major events that shook up the British were out of hinsa. Whether we talk of Bhagat Singh, or killing of Dyer, or major events that actually, shook them up.
Yes.
It's not these protests, half of the protests were withdrawn by Gandhi. Civil disobedience and they were withdrawn. So only 3-4 protests which were in the beginning of Gandhi's career, which started, the later part was all hit with war. And with somewhere the courage of the people.
Some or other kind of violence
Some
always.
sort of violence.
Yes.
Now the difference between violence and armed protest, we have to understand. The armed protest is not violence.
Violence, no.
Violence is when you kill individual or when one individual is killing someone else. This is violence.
Yes.
When one particular religion is killing the another religion, this is violence. What happened of that ahimsa, which actually resulted into the partition of the country and the violence followed by that? If this freedom is brought by ahimsa, then who is responsible of that hinsa? Which actually occurred. That hinsa was to me more gory, more dejecting, more shameful. Because the countrymen were only killing the country.
Yes. And especially
what freedom is.
I'm just adding to your point, especially now when I go back to the history, what we learned, the Satyagraha and the March Past, everything was attacked by British army. Again, Indian soldiers, those who were working for Britishers. So, yes, thousands of people were made to take that without uttering a word. And it's under the name of ahimsa.
See, we confuse Gandhi as a man and Gandhian principles. The Gandhian principles were not solely responsible to bring the freedom. Because Gandhian principles resulted into partition and then the violence after that. Gandhi as a man I admire because he really practiced those things which he said. So I could see two things here. Like Gandhi's principles did not bring freedom. The freedom was brought for majority of different causes also. The global causes, the world affairs and the other protests and the other people who were involved in the freedom struggle, the diaspora attempts happening in Canada, happening in Singapore, happening in Mauritius, in Fiji. How can we undermine those diaspora attempts also? So many things were happening at every place. And then the World War, of course. So it was basically the war which brought us the freedom. If you see that.
They gave up basically. Now coming back to Netaji, he refused the government job after his essays. Also, the sacrifices just now you mentioned. All that was a real divine activities, I would say, because of sheer love and affection for the motherland and for the people of the nation. All those inspirations and all those motivations, why we do not see it now? Why is it missing from, I would not say only politicians, but even from the society as well?
Maybe not up to that parallel, but we do have incidents. So I'm not a pessimist. If you see, a few years back, there was this movement by Anna Hazare. And during that particular movement, I saw many young professionals leaving their jobs and joining politics or joining social services because they had faith in that leader who has stood up for the society.
Change, yes.
It was not standing up for politics, but for the society. So I think when the need would arise, we do have people who would stand up like that. Now then it enlarges the responsibility of those leaders who have given this clarion call to maintain that dignity, to maintain that cause, to actually live up to that particular position for which a young one sacrifices the profession.
True.
Because it's not easy in this competitive world to leave the profession and dedicate someone for the society.
Yeah.
So I don't find it missing.
Mhm.
Maybe when Subhash Babu was in the field, at that time he had a whole group
Yes.
to look after, to support.
Yes.
Maybe his targets were larger than life. And he had no other option but to leave that and then come to the field, So I'm sure people would rise up to the call if the need be.
And as I always heard from leaders like you mentioned, you also echoing the same thing, that then we had a definite target, fighting with Britishers. Now we do not have a definite cause, and that's the reason people are silent. But if there is a need, yes, many will come forward.
I have seen nowadays there are so many social media Samaritans. They are fighting a different type of lingo and different type of narratives and topics. They are taking up the causes in a different mode.
Yes.
So you may not find them physically around, but there are many people who are differently around them.
Around and raising their voice for the cause of nation. Yes. Ma'am, so Netaji was getting into a very heroic act when he decided to run away and start forming the army. He the history book says that they were militant acts. What we have learned in our school days. Just now you said yes, by design it was portrayed such a way that the whole group of people get misled or misguided. However, from home he had a wonderful support, especially his elder brother. So was he the man who was supporting all his ideology and all his thought process, and also I think financially supporting him?
He has a full journey actually.
Yes.
He started as a Congress worker.
Yes.
As a Seva Dal worker.
Yes.
Which has no history of armed forces.
No.
And thereafter, he was elected as mayor, Calcutta Corporation. He was leading. And people say that there are many other groups were working over there, like Jugantar was there, or Anushilan Samiti members were there. Because of them, he was elected as the mayor and head of that Calcutta Corporation. And he used much of that money also in building up a brigade, though it was never confirmed, or people could not actually validate these news. But this was just maybe just a guess, or maybe the truth. Because the gazetteer doesn't speak much. But there were some British newspapers, Guardian and all, they were talking about it. Had it been proved, I'm sure he would have been hanged. But there was no proof about it. Yes. Initially, you need some support. And after that, I'm pretty sure the societies came up, the women came up, and some elite class, what we say, the Bhadra Samaj, that came up in Bengal. And they have seen some potential in his cause. And in his way of working and what he was talking about that, because apparently he was still supporting Congress.
Yes.
Their major satyagraha, their major protests and all. He was actually, and in Bengal he was in the Socialist Party also. He was
quite involved into all those activities. Yes.
And many of them, like in 1942 protest, he was the major reason why Bharat Chhodo became so successful actually, though it is again never being talked anywhere.
I know.
That's why it was so successful, because Subhash took it from the front.
But we heard somebody else's name for the Bharat Chhodo Andolan.
Yes, there are so many other names, and they say, and actually what I found in this journey of Subhash also, many of the calls which Congress took were his brainchild. Whether it is civil disobedience. Now, civil disobedience was a very huge idea. He said, you stop using, so you break the economy of the country. And once you break the economy of the country, their whole purpose of ruling you is over. And during the war, they need money. So you stop using that. And it was his brainchild which was used, Asahayog Andolan. And then of course Bharat Chodo also, he said this is the right time. You just be loud in the protest and say, okay, this is the time you quit India, otherwise we all are standing here for the freedom. And which Nehru said, no, no, let us write a letter to British government and ask them what is their stand on the war and this and that. And then he deviated and said, okay, now I'm preparing an army.
Yeah.
So his target was so clear that the youngsters at that time
Yes.
could relate to him more.
True.
And though he was having his own spiritual quotient, but
Yes.
then that spirituality was connected with nationalism.
Nationalism, yes.
So he could give a new dimension to nationalism. That is why initially he might be supported somewhere with the corporation or his position or his contacts over there. But later, I think the society as a whole and his friends overseas who supported
him. Now I'm asking a very tricky question, and I want you to give a real your style of answering the thing very elaborate. First, I want to understand what is meant by communist.
For me, it's a very, very end corner of being a socialist. To be very simple, like it's a socialist by fear.
Okay.
Not voluntary.
Okay.
So you have to, under compulsion, you have to become a socialist. For me, that is communism, because it divides the entire society on the basis of economics. And it has no other element but economics to look at the society. So there is always a group which is being suffering and the other which is making the sins over that. So you have to dilute that group which is actually holding the power on these sufferers. And for that, you have to turn that group into socialist. It has nothing to do with the bottom group. Whether they prosper or they don't prosper is not the priority. The priority is that those who have more money, they should not hold it in that sense. And to the ideology to tame them to a new normal. That particular ideology to me is communism.
Now, if we go by that definition, then Swamiji, in the very beginning of his action, took the support of communist, and he made some comrade, and they were the one who were helping him to make his way out of India and form the army. However, what we have seen not in our school history books, but other reference books, those people were supporting him. Those people were supporting his ideology because their interests also lied in freedom of India. I think that was one reason why those people came together. But nowadays, communist is a very different strata, and it's actually damaging the harmony of the society. And as you rightly said, the people or the section of people who are underprivileged, deprived of many facilities and many growth development actions are the ones who are actually following them, and they are never prospering, they are never coming forward, and they are in the same situation. So why has the thing changed from then to now, or it has been same always?
I don't find real communism now.
I see.
I have myself studied in Moscow when it was USSR. Was not a disintegrated nation. And when I see Russia at that time and now, I don't find the communism over there.
I see.
Similarly, many other countries, they say China is a communist country, then why it is capitalizing the whole world? So, to the real communism, I don't see it's in practice anywhere. It has turned micro capitalists in countries and people. So basically, it's something like usurping more power usurping more space, more wealth. It's basically nothing but the capitalism in another form.
Hmm.
So what the communism has left only as a charter for the masses,
Yes.
not for the people who are governing.
Yes.
So the ideology is not there for the leaders or for the governance or for the politicians.
But sorry to interrupt, but the states in our nation who are under the communist are the one with going with the same idea. What you are saying, they are not allowing the people to see any development. No, nothing. So they are going with that thought process. So we, how can we still say that governing body is not communist?
Absolutely. Their basic ideology has been diluted. You see the Politburo or their whole, maybe the formation, everything, it may look same because they have a same, what we say, the jacket. So they are wearing the jackets, but what about the souls? The only quotient of that particular aspect we have kept is violence. Apart from violence, what other elements of communism do we find even in the States, even in India? I don't find anything which relates to the haves and have-nots and bridging them, or maybe you say, okay, one is the bourgeois class and one is the worker class, and what are we doing for the worker class then? Where are those organizations who would stand up for the underprivileged ones? They're not opening good schools for them. They're not having some good working conditions for them. They are not offering some better service conditions for them. They have this, golden opportunity to show that how important this particular ideology can be.
Yes.
But they have failed in doing that. And I could see only violence is being kept out of that whole charter.
Yes.
That you
it's
eliminate
more of a slavery,
anyone.
more of a dominating this particular class, and more of a negative.
So what were zamidars earlier?
Yes.
They were doing the same
thing. Yes.
So these are new era zamidars to me. Even in the countries, abroad, you just name any particular communist country which is actually communist. I don't find them. The underline is that basic human greed.
Yes.
So they are beyond any ideologies, basically.
इंडियन नेशनल आर्मी एंड आजाद हिंद सेना, क्या फर्क है दोनों में, और हम क्यों इसको इन दो नामों से पुकारते?
Because they were actually two different things. Indian National Army was Subhash Babu's brainchild, and he coined it. Basically, when he decided to go away from Congress, and then he decided what form should I take, and he found there are many young boys and girls. He can actually form a brigade, and the world situation also helped him. Because in the earlier question you asked about why the communist countries favored him, it was not all communist countries were favoring him. Russia and Britain were friends at that time. So we cannot find Russia, Germany, and Japan together. So he had his own problems and his own preferred fields and all. So Indian National Army he formed, and that should be given to Subhash Babu. But Azad Hind Sena, that is basically Ras Bihari Bose. And when he went to Japan, and the Japanese government saw some, opportunity to enter into this Asia, this part of Asia, and to come up to India, and then to become a parallel power with Europe. There the ambitions formed up, and he was given that highest award of Japanese government, Rash Babu. So it was his brainchild, and Japan actually thought also that if we support Azad Hind cause, then it might part in World War also. It can be utilized for us as well and all. So there are two different things. And Raj Babu, when Subhash Babu went and met him,
Yes.
he actually sort of handed over
Yes.
that, well, this is already there,
Yes.
and you can now take over this. And he used that also as part of it.
But Japan actually, in reality, did not help Subhash Babu.
It could not, because you see, one thing is only one country was not needed at that time
No.
when others were ready to help. And Subhash Babu could not depend only on one country.
One country, true.
So he could never depend only on Japan.
Yes.
He was misled by Germany initially, and he got closer to Germany, and then he thought Russia will also help because of that. But there might be different reasons, but he could not solely depend on Japan. And Japan, by the time it entered into Burma, so soldiers were already tired and they were sick, and there were some plague-like conditions over there, and they could not survive the illness, and there were so many other reasons. Because of that, Japan could not solely, though Japan was among the first of those countries which actually gave recognition to his government, and they recognized him as prime minister.
Quite a big support,
so we cannot undermine the role of Japan.
Yes.
And he acknowledged that also.
Yes. They offered quite a big support to his...
Too much. Like so many times he was there and asylum was given to him, and he was treated well. The news came from Germany and Russia and other countries that he was not being treated well. But from Japan, we never heard that news. They always took him in high spirit, high esteem, and he was recognized for his efforts.
True. We normally make a fun that if somebody is very pushy or very dominant, we call him Hitler. But the same Hitler did support Subhash Babu. What do you think? Why? What was his interest?
He was basically a power monger. And if you could see the opportunities to have more power, and that too again Britain. And there were some reasons why again Britain, against Britain. So he could see those possibilities. And in Subhash, he could see that opportunity, that he is a valiant leader who has ideas, who has courage, who has organizational skills, who has proven himself, who is very swift. He can move from the countries to countries, who can organize the support, who has well-reputed place in the world politics. People are waiting for him to come down. People are ready to listen to him. To Subhash's stature was, my goodness, it was something like a joy. No Indian leader had that stature what Subhash had. Because Nehru was heard in India and in Britain. Imagine Subhash was being heard even amidst the rival countries. Equally, he was heard in Italy, in Britain, in France, in Germany, in Russia, in Japan, in Burma, in Singapore, in Korea, in Vietnam, in Afghanistan. What a span he had. And people were ready, at least on his face, he had never failed. He was never turned down with any of his proposal. And he proved it. He got some independence. He unfurled that Indian flag. He showed that he could actually achieve that particular aim, what he is planning to. So Hitler, basically, he could understand
saw a potential leader in him.
He is not, putting his coins into wrong basket. He was actually favoring a potential leader, and if that happens, then India was a very big dominion for Britain.
Nirja ma'am, I think from the time Subhash Babu started his activities and his the miserable end to his era, it was not a long story. It was hardly a 5 to 6 years of investment. But as you said, the range was really high, and the kind of dynamics and the shares to his activities were brilliant. But do you think India as a nation could not relate with all that, and that's the reason that formula did not work.
Why only Subhash?
Hmm.
India celebrated only few.
Hmm.
Let us put it this way.
Mhm.
Only few are glorified, particularly one from the Congress,
Hmm.
and out of Congress also one from the family.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you start taking the names
Hmm.
and you say, okay, we have heard, we know something, we understand. But the way Subhash Babu was treated is criminal.
Yes.
And as you said, rightly said, that his public life was very small, looking into the decades of others.
Yes.
In the, not even one decade,
No.
not even one full decade,
Full
he
decade, yes.
dedicated for the country.
Yes. Yes.
And in that smallest span, he left behind so many, we say, the events or incidents or narratives that the way he should be taken up have been systematically sidelined.
True.
And
By
this
design.
could not have happened unless and until you planned for it.
Yes, I said by design.
So he was planned to be sidelined.
Yes.
Even now, when we say, okay, his diaries would be made open, or his records would be made open, I'm not sure how far they would substantiate his realities. They are just for some of the satisfaction of some researchers.
True.
But what about the mass public?
Mass public, true.
Even now, we have failed to make him rise like a public figure.
Yes. Yes.
So that is, of course, with design. And now, even if we go back, how many ardent researchers would we find? Only private diaries, some writings, some friends, some relatives, and we know they are subjective. We don't know how much analytical material we could find
available,
out from there. So, and now, if you go to Britain, you find that, okay, Gandhi's name is included in that Lincoln College, Nehru's name is related to Cambridge, but for Subhash, he has not yet been identified as an alumni of his own institution. So even now, that oblique low
acceptance, yes,
that discordance,
yes,
and that neglect is still there. There is a certain section in the society who doesn't want to celebrate Subhash. Because the moment we start celebrating Subhash, it would be the largest leader out of it. And he was so magnanimous, like he only called first time Mahatma.
Yes. Yes.
In his radio speech.
Yes.
So he was that much magnanimous, who could give that much of respect, who would stand for the cause, who would not bring the personal biases. Where are the leaders? Not even a single other leader in entire freedom struggle you will find who is so selfless, who is such a visionary, who is so clear-sighted, who is action-oriented, who has such large networking and organizational skills, who is so result oriented. All adjectives fall short for Subhash.
It's very unfortunate and very disheartening that a couple of people are glorified larger than life, and it is portrayed as such that only those two brought the freedom to motherland. But there were many who actually were practically working courageously, sacrificing many things. For that matter, even Savarkar. My goodness, what a personality. But how well all these potential and courageous people were kept aside. And when we say that my nation is based on Sanatana Dharma, and my people are very tolerant, and my people are very sensitive. But when we go back, we see that what I am seeing is what I have been seeing from that day. Same thing continues. Those people who are capable, those people who are having a mind to do are kept away, and credit is given to somebody else. The glorified days are seen by somebody else. and those who are there to sacrifice, they only sacrifice. So it's very, very disheartening, very unfortunate. Last word, ma. The plane crash story is also told in such a way that no, we don't know whether he is dead or no. I mean, so much of politics to that extent. Still, as an individual, I don't know whether he really died in that plane crash or was he still alive.
So individually, I don't buy that at all. I don't buy that theory at all. For me, he didn't die in that plane crash.
Okay.
And I'm very sure about it. Because the logistics don't approve that. The facts don't approve that.
I see.
So many other findings, they don't consolidate the fact that he died.
I see.
Because if that was true, the nation would have reacted in a different manner at that time. So the reaction of the country also doesn't match. A person of Subhash Babu's stature dies in a plane crash. The news cannot reach to the country in the sleeping hours. And it should have impacted the politics of India in a different manner. So many layers, they suggest that he didn't die in that crash. But might be he was managed to be silent, and that's what he might have remained. After that, whatever stories come up, I cannot substantiate those. But to me, he didn't die in the crash.
That's even more miserable. Because the man lost the entire interest and contribution and interest in the same goal, the dream he wanted to achieve, because of the treatment by his own people.
I would see it in different manner. You see, what was that time? That was end of the World War, approximately. Yes. He could see that the people he relied upon have not been coming to the power. He could see that the new age of India coming up. Maybe the goals what he had set, they were about to be met. And the way he was being treated, or he faced so many realities of life, that made him a sadhu, a mental sadhu. That, okay, his goal for this country is over, sort of. For me, a person of his intelligence,
yes,
he works on a very different plane.
Yes.
He is not like an ordinary mortal.
No. And he never wanted to be in the limelight and
and my reading says that he might be still connected at that time with the communist countries and would be giving them, the needed feedback. Because my other suspicion goes to the governing regime, that why should they keep on taking his name here and there? If a person is gone, is gone. Why should they keep on taking his name and contribution? And they could have easily removed him from the memory.
Yes.
But somewhere his contribution for long was there in the country, and maybe that was needed in that form only. So my reading is this, that he was fulfilling some hidden objectives for the country, which would come into light. Such items come into light after 100 years or 150 years. And like now we are revisiting the Mughal Kal and revisiting medieval. Somewhere these era would also be revisited.
Yeah. Hopefully that time the truth comes out.
The truth would
come. Last question. Jai Hind ka nara kab exist hua, and when did it become a national slogan?
So recently I have written a book, and that book is the Indian freedom fighters on other soils. That is the diaspora of freedom fighters. And when I was writing that book, I came across a personality from Kerala Champak Raman Pillai.
Okay.
And though again he was not very much celebrated here, but he actually worked a lot, and with him Swami Vivekananda's brother also has worked in Germany and in some other places. And he gave that in 1907 the first time Nara called Jai Hindustan Ki. And from Jai Hindustan Ki, it came to, because at that time, if you remember, the Bang was there. And when Bengal was partitioned, the Jai Hind and Vande Mataram, two things have become very crucial at that time. So he coined this particular Nara in Germany, Jai Hindustan Ki. And later we have in records that Subhash Babu met him, Champak Raman Pillai, and then he liked this smaller form of it, Jai Hind, instead of saying Jai Hindustan Ki, and he liked that, and he incorporated that in his life even before that became a slogan for INA. It was his style, and he would say Jai Hind even in the Congress meetings, and this Jai Hind had become a word out of that. Even today, a couple of years back, I visited Thiruvananthapuram. There, near the stadium, there is a statue of Subhash Babu, and it is written Jai Hind. But I feel sorry that that place belongs to Champak Raman Pillai, and it should be his statue, and that Nara should have been given to him. But I'm happy that at least in Kerala you find him at least. The way the Nara, the slogan came from there only. So it's like that.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate and admire the way you have explained many things to us and to our audience. And we wish you all the best. And thanks for taking out time from your busy schedule.
Thank you so much. And I wish you all success for this wonderful endeavor to you and to your entire team, and look forward.
Thank you. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.